everybody, we're back with a brand new Cabral Concept. I've seen so many posts lately, so many posts saying, oh, this is the best form of magnesium to use if you have heart disease or heart-based issues, or you're worried about your heart. This is the best form of magnesium to use if you have blood sugar-based issues. This is the best one to use if you have energy-based issues. And I want to basically call that out here today, share with you what magnesium is really meant to be used for and do for the body, while also talking about the best forms of magnesium truly for the different forms that they are created for and how they do help the body. But never losing sight of why would someone use magnesium in the first place, which we of course will get to. So let's take it from the top. A lot of people have heard of magnesium by now. When I did my first podcast on magnesium and talking about the book, The Magnesium Miracle, back in 2016, magnesium was known, but it wasn't being thrown around, social media, because social media was really just starting to find its legs at that time, with people saying, well, magnesium helps with over 300 different enzymatic transformations in the body. Yes, all of that is true, but what does that even mean, right? Like, why do we look at these specific things? Well, magnesium really is one of those high-level nutritional minerals that most people do need, and that is because we are not low at a blood-based level, but we're low at a tissue functional-based level. And what that means is we're suffering from a lot of the health-based issues that magnesium helps to balance. Let's go through them right now. The first form I want to talk about, one of the most popular, is magnesium citrate. I want to share with you not just the name of it, but where it's derived. Magnesium citrate is derived. So remember, there's always magnesium, that's elemental, right? That's the mineral itself, but it needs to be bound to something in order for it to be absorbed. So in this case, citrate comes from citric acid. Now, citric acid always gets this bad rap. Honestly, not every form of citric acid comes from GMO mold. That's something that, like, again, health influencers or whoever online came up with. Sure, some really cheap forms of citric acid come from GMO mold. But if a product on the side of the bottle says GMO free, it's not coming from GMOs, because that most likely, hopefully, most products are coming from a GMP-based facility. And you can't lie on those labels. If not, you're in big trouble. So here's the thing. Citric acid can come from lemons. It can come from limes. It can come from a lot of different things, right? But citric acid with that citrate allows it for pretty good bioavailability. Not the best, but pretty good bioavailability in the body. That means the body's ability to be absorbed, and it can actually help with bowel movements. Now, the other thing I want to dispel is that magnesium citrate leads to loose stools. No, it's not. It is not a laxative. So like when you hear magnesium citrate, it's not a laxative. It actually helps balance certain levels of pH in the body. It can be actually quite good for many people to use a citrate-based form, which can be good for the kidneys, good for certain forms of blood pressure, but not the best form, but a very good form. And so you might not take it just on its own, but you might use it as part of another formula. So a good overall form of magnesium, probably best known for calming your intestines, your bowels, not necessarily causing loose stool, but allowing you to have normal bowel movements. All right. Now, again, keep in mind, any form of magnesium, when overdone, can cause loose stool, like most products, but magnesium is certainly one of those. The next one of the most popular, and for good reason, magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate is one of the best. It's the one that I started with back in 2006, 2007, when I met my mentor. It was a game changer for me. Why? Easy on the stomach, easy on the gut, it helps pass the blood-brain barrier, so it gets to the brain. Remarkable for calming the nervous system, good for sleep, mood, and relaxation. Like all around, a great one. Why? Bound to glycine. So magnesium, it really matters what it's bound to. Glycine, an amino acid, very calming for the body, calming for the nervous system. So great form of it there. I wouldn't say one form is better than the other. We'll get to that at the end, but I want to share with you an unbiased look at all the different forms. Magnesium taurinate. That's magnesium bound to taurine. Taurine, another amino acid. Taurine in its own right is phenomenal for the body. Like the last couple of weeks, it's gotten a bad rap because of, there's a study showing that people with leukemia may be exacerbated and spread faster if you have leukemia, if you take higher doses of taurine. Okay. That's actually true for most forms of cancer, because when you get cancer, the cancer cells change certain receptors in the body, and they change the uptake of certain amino acids. So almost no amino acid is safe. They found the same with glutamine. So what do? Just eliminate all basically animal, fish-based proteins. Like that's not like what you do. So just because something exacerbates a pre-existing cancer doesn't mean that it's unhealthy. Taurine is needed for detoxification. It's needed for mitochondrial help. It helps with energy. It helps with anti-aging. It helps with the heart. It helps with blood pressure. Taurine is an amazing amino acid. And so having said that, magnesium taurine can be great for all of those. Magnesium malate, this is one that we like to use as well, because typically magnesium is calming. It's one of the great principles of magnesium. It helps calm the sympathetic nervous system in stress and fight or flight. But when you bind it to malate or malic acid, all these, it sounds like acid, like it's bad, but it's actually just part of a Krebs cycle, energy-based cycle. So citric acid is part of the citric acid or a Krebs cycle. And so when you look at it, all of these things actually help to produce energy. Malate, malic acid, amazing for muscle fatigue, fibromyalgia, general malaise, tiredness, right? So malic acid can be helpful for that. Magnesium threonate, this was almost never talked about 10 years ago. Now it's being far more talked about because there's a few studies out right now, and I think rightfully so, that show that magnesium threonate, more specifically the patented version of it called Magtine, actually is best absorbed by the brain, meaning like it passes the blood-brain barrier greater than any of the other forms of magnesium. Magnesium glycinate, the second best. And so we use this specifically for older adults or those more worried about their cognitive performance with memory, learning, recall, all of those things, right? And so this ends up being typically one that we add on to another product. And the reason is, and I was actually just chatting with the company the other day, and they're like, oh, we want to add this, and we want to add this, and we want to add this. And I'm like, all of those are great, but there's no way that you can put those in one formula. I'm like, for me, like I love putting together synergistic formulas, but you can't put, 25 pounds in a 2-pound bag. It's not going to happen. And the difference with magnesium threonate is that it takes so much threonic acid or L-threonate to bind to magnesium to pass the blood-brain barrier. What does that mean? Well, typically in one capsule or so, you can get about 120 milligrams or so of magnesium. Well, it takes 2 capsules to get about 144 milligrams of magnesium in magnesium threonate because you need so much of the threonate to get the effect to move through the blood-brain barrier. So it's usually you're taking a good quality magnesium supplement. I'll talk about it. We use something called full spectrum magnesium, which gives you many of the benefits. And then we'll use magnesium threonate before bed on top of it if someone so desires. So that's kind of like getting the best of all worlds. All right, magnesium orotate, not one that a lot of people use, but I think it's good to know about it, good to bring it to your attention. And that's orotic acid. That's OROTIC. This is a nucleotide precursor. Not a lot of people use it, but some people in the biohacking world or athletics world will use it because there's at least some decent research that shows that it's good for the heart, but also helps with athletic performance and metabolism. So again, don't use it a lot in our practice, but certainly maybe there's a time and place for it. We'll talk about that. Magnesium chloride, I thought I'd bring that up in this next one as well. Magnesium chloride should not be taken orally. It usually has a very large laxative effect. Not a good idea. But magnesium chloride being basically a salt from seawater, is great to use topically. So if you're someone that likes to spray on maybe some of your supplements, you could certainly do that. I find on the inner forearm or inner arm or inner thigh, a good place to allow that to absorb. The problem is some people react to the chloride, that salt. It causes a red rash, causes itchiness. Not the best for all individuals. Sometimes I just say maybe dilute it a little bit, but at the same time, I don't think that anybody needs to spray on the magnesium chloride unless they, of course, want to. And then the next one, which I definitely recommend in our practice, is taking a nice warm Epsom salt bath. Great for the nervous system, calming for the body. What is it? It's magnesium bound to sulfur. Okay, sulfur and oxygen, we'll say, is great for a good detoxifier for the body. It's only mildly and partially absorbed through the skin when you're taking an Epsom salt bath, but very good for overall relaxation and detoxification-based effects. So really nice. Not something you would take orally. There are protocols where you take it orally, but it does cause loose stool. So you're taking that for a very specific reason, which is essentially cleaning out your intestines. Not something you want to do all the time, but certainly there's a time and place maybe for that as well. The next one is one that they use in hospitals all the time. So they give magnesium in hospitals, not for the nervous system and fight or flight based benefits or even sleep, but for the laxative benefits. So they use magnesium oxide. It's magnesium plus basically oxygen. Now, some people like this because, well, it has a higher pH and they feel that they want to raise the pH in the intestines and they feel that they get maybe a little boost in energy because of it. Well, I'll tell you this, even though it's quite high in magnesium content by weight, over 60%, which is like the highest, and that's why people like to use it too, because it's very cheap, very inexpensive. The problem is literally its number one job is to cause a laxative effect. So if that's what you're looking for, well, that might be one use for it. The next one is magnesium carbonate. I like to bring this up because, again, there's a time and place for everything. Typically, you're not using a lot of carbonate or bicarbonates, and the reason is it's not always all that great to absorb. However, people will often use a magnesium carbonate or a small amount of calcium carbonate, not a lot, you only would want a small amount, because it buffers the acid in the stomach. So if you're trying to get something into the body where you can't have high stomach acid, it's one way to do it. If you're taking high dose ascorbic acid, vitamin C, one way to do that is with a buffered vitamin C. And typically that's a bicarbonate or carbonate. It's like using sodium bicarb, right? But that's like the baking soda, aluminum free, hopefully. This is an equivalent to essentially that with some magnesium derivatives. So it can be quite helpful for some cases, not one you would use for high levels of absorption. Just a couple more I want to bring you. Magnesium lactate. All right, it's magnesium plus lactic acid. You might say, why would I ever want that? Well, not a lot of people would. So it's not always the best form of it, but it can be fairly easy to digest. A lot of people like that, and that can be quite helpful as well. This next one is one that I had used in the past, but don't use as much anymore, especially since I like to use it closer to bedtime. This is magnesium aspartate. So aspartate is aspartic acid. It's an amino acid. It is actually helpful for producing ATP and might be beneficial for muscular repair as well. Okay, and the last one, the very last one I want to bring you is one of my favorites as well, and it's magnesium lysine. Why lysine? Well, it's magnesium bound to lysine. And lysine, you probably heard me talk about before, is an essential amino acid. And one of the reasons why I like this is because it combines really well with glycine or glycinate. And also, the lysine is beneficial for the immune system. Most of us living in this crazy world that we live in right now, it never hurts to get a little bit of that antiviral based effect on an everyday basis. Now, does everyone need to take a gram or 2 grams or 3 grams of L-lysine every day? No, but when you get a virus, it could be actually quite helpful. So a little bit every day, not megadosing, not necessarily a bad effect. And then, of course, what we talked about before is the glycine balances that with the calming, the relaxation, detoxification. They combine really well together. So essentially, as a practitioner for many years now, over 25 years, and someone that started formulating their own products about a decade ago, one of the things that when I was creating a magnesium-based formula, I looked at what is the whole point of magnesium? Well, the main reason you want to take magnesium, like literally the main reason, is typically to balance the effects of oxidative and overall physiological stress in the body. The main reason, neurological based effects. And then everything that it's bound to can just be an added benefit. But really the effect that we want is calm. We want to balance calcium with magnesium. That's its main role. I mean, that's literally one of its main role. If you don't have that, you get muscle spasms, right? If you don't have enough magnesium, you can't sleep. You can't turn off the sympathetic nervous system. So when you're thinking about creating a magnesium product, do you really need it to be taurine? Do you really need it to be a lot of these other things? Not necessarily, right? Because if you really want to help your heart and blood pressure and detoxification, anti-aging, you're going to want about 2 grams of taurine a day. You're not going to get that with a magnesium product, right? So it's like, I always believe in use a product for the specific intended effect that you want. So for me, I said, okay, well, what do people need in my clinical practice that I've seen for years now? They really need to calm stress. They need to be able to fall asleep at night. They need sustained energy. That's an important one that we'll talk about in just a moment. And they want to have normal daily bowel movements. So then when you start to look at that, you start to go down the list and you say, okay, what are my 3 or 4 or 5 favorites that would help my clients to the greatest degree? So when it comes down to it, it's citrate for normal daily bowel movements, not loose stool. Please don't believe the hype. That is not true in any way, shape, or form. It is glycinate. It is malate, because I want people to be able to take magnesium during the day as well without them falling asleep. right? Like you still want to be able to use it during the day for the anti-anxiety based effects, but you don't want the sedative based effects that magnesium is known for. So adding some malate or malic acid in there can be great. And then of course, magnesium glycinate, if I didn't ever mention that, that's probably your number one. That it probably is your top one for most people. Not everybody, but for most people. And I like the lysine in there as well for a little bit of that immune based effects, because many people in my practice, they want to keep their immune system healthy and strong. So that's ultimately what I settled on. That's called full spectrum magnesium by Equilife. You don't have to use that, but I always want people to know there should always be a method behind why you formulate a product. If you tell me magnesium taurate is the best, I'm asking you why. Why is it the best? Well, it helps with heart conditions. It helps with blood pressure. Okay. Like if your niche is just that and that's what you're looking to do, I understand. But you're still not going to get the clinical benefits for the heart-based issues because it's not enough taurine. So ultimately, you have to take a taurine supplement besides it. So anyway, that's how I look at things. And then you might say, well, then what do you do because you really want to help people sleep at night? If you want just a sleep-based one, we do something called calming magnesium as a powder. You can just take it a half hour to an hour before bed. And it's just magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate. And what does that do? The ultimate relaxant for the mind, body, and nervous system. So again, you can use things multiple ways. We use full spectrum magnesium, typically 1 at lunch, 2 at dinner for overall kind of calming effects. For many people, that works great. Some people will then use a half a scoop to a scoop of calming magnesium before bed. If they need it for sleep, great. That's up to them and what their body needs at this season, this moment in time. And then some people will use 2 capsules of magnesium threonate if they want before bed, because they want some of those cognitive, aging brain-based effects. And that's great too. So now that you know what each form is best used for, but really the overall purpose of magnesium, you'll be able to choose the right brand for you. Hopefully this was helpful. I can't link any of this up. I can link up all the different show notes at stephencabral.com/3341. I just can never link up nutritional supplements. It's against FDA rules. And of course, we don't break any FDA rules here. So you can find those at stephencabral.com/shop. That's where the Equilife practice is. Lab testing, protocols, you name it, it's all there. We use full spectrum magnesium. We use calming magnesium. We've used them now for about a decade. They work great. They'll work for you. But again, always do feel free to share your favorite products that you like. Always interested in looking at those. And if you have any ideas for future shows, we'd be happy to tackle those as well. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing rest of the day. I'll talk with you tomorrow on the Cabral Concept. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.